your day. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliant to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Hi, how are you? Good to have you on the program. I thought I'd start out differently today and just go, howdy, how are you, everybody? Jimmy is my name, as the choir has happily informed you. Pleasure to be here on this glorious day the Lord has made, the 16th day of October, year of our Lord 2025. Jimmy Lakey is my name. It is a Thursday morning in America and Thursday morning everywhere. That it's today. If it's today, it's Thursday. But if it's tomorrow, it's not Thursday. You get the idea. It's very deep. I'll explain it to you later, Delilah. It's very deep how that works. Very much starting off the show with some profundity, I have to say. Good to have you here. A lot of great guests today. If you've been wanting kind of the, I won't say the inside scoop, but definitely a perspective that from Israel, Kenneth Abramowitz is going to be on the show here in just a moment. He'll be on in just a few moments, actually, and he's going to jump in here and we'll talk about Hamas, peace in the Middle East. Is this a lasting peace? Is this not a lasting peace? What's happening with the bodies that have not yet been released? I understand that probably they're saying that they can't find all of them. I think Egypt or somebody has offered to go in and help them. I'm guessing when you're getting bombed and when you're torturing other people, you don't have time to catalog where you stored all the other people you killed. I'm guessing that's probably what happened. I don't mean to be crass, but the reality of it is I'm guessing the Gaza terrorist, Hamas, did not carefully care for the remains of the Jewish victims of their demonization. So I'm guessing that's probably what happened. So there's probably some truth to it, but we shall see. It's also interesting to see that these people, that all these university students in the modern day Democrat Party right here in America were chanting, free Palestine, end the genocide. In other words, the people of Gaza, or Hamas, I guess would say, were being victimized and murdered and brutalized in war. Well, what did those poor little people do there, those Hamas demons? What did they do? They're lining people up, Arabs on the streets of Gaza, and they're shooting them. I wonder where the American left and the worldwide left is at, the anti-Semites out there. Are they now that we're screaming end the genocide? Are they talking about the end the genocide now? Let me ask you, if you're a person out there that would watch this show, hear this show, and when Israel was there retaliating and giving retribution for October the 7th, 2 years ago, were you out there screaming end the genocide? And if you were, I have to ask you, why are you not saying that now? They're literally systematically lining people up on the streets in Gaza, and the Hamas terrorists are shooting, executing them. And if you were screaming at Israel to end the genocide and you're not screaming now, then you are an intellectually bankrupt human being and probably need to get your heart right, and your head right, and your headspace right. So, yeah. Sorry, I brought my dog into the studio this morning, and he's annoying me. If anybody wants a dog, I'll give him away right now. Just give him flat away. You can have him. He's an annoying beast this morning. I regret bringing him into the studio. I regret doing that. Anyway, yeah, all right. It was good to have all of you here on the program. We'll talk to Kenneth Abramowitz coming up. Michael Lett's going to come on the show as well this morning. Michael Letts will come on the show. Michael Letts will stop the show. What the hell is he doing over there? Anyway, Michael Letts will come on the show in just a second, and we'll talk to him. Let's talk Doritos and Cheetos. Everybody like Doritos and Cheetos? On the daily update, I've got a big-time Doritos and Cheetos story. You ready for this? Doritos and Cheetos. PepsiCo, who owns Doritos and Cheetos, has decided to go for a Maha makeover. The company announced plans to remove the artificial colors and flavors from Doritos, Cheetos, and other popular products as part of a broad push towards what they called naked, or NKD snacks. Lagarta, who is the chief CEO, Ramon Lagarta, said the company wants to address what he describes as deficiency of fiber among U.S. consumers. Fiber will be a big trend. Consumers in the United States have a deficiency in fiber, and we're innovating in fiber. He says the new versions of Cheetos and Doritos will be made without artificial flavors and without artificial colors, according to Fox News. The move follows an April announcement that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that it would work with the industry leaders to eliminate petroleum-based dyes from the food supply by the end of the year. Among the dyes being targeted for Doritos, nacho cheese, and Cheetos, likewise, are red number 40, yellow number 5, yellow number 6, which are found in Doritos, nacho cheese, and Cheetos has those plus yellow number 6. Board-certified dietitian Kendall McIntosh tells the Fox News that such additives have been linked to inflammation, hyperactivity, and oxidative stress. Now, let me ask you, did you know that all the dyes in the Doritos and the Cheetos that you feed your kids, you eat yourself during a football game, did you know that those dyes have been linked to all sorts of problems, inflammation, hyperactivity, and oxidative stress? Did you know that? Well, you didn't know that, probably maybe suspected it, but only because of the work of the MAHA movement and only because of the work of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Are you now aware of that? A review of 27 clinical trials reveal that about 64% of studies found behavioral issues in children that are connected to what? Eating artificial dyes. Let me repeat that, parents. Did you know this? The federal government, the Food and Drug Administration that's supposed to keep you safe in the food and water supply, the same people that... the same kind of group of experts that lied to you about the booger cootie virus and certain vaccines, etc. Well, guess what? A review of 27 clinical trials, 64% of studies have found behavioral issues in children connected to eating artificial dyes. So the FDA, the federal government of the United States, up until the days of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., would approve things that would go into your food, and they would cause behavioral issues in your children. It could be hyperactivity, it could be oxidative stress, it could be inflammation, but behavioral issues would happen in your children, and then you would go to the doctor, the medical facilities, and you would say, my kid's acting nuts, what do I do? And they would say, we have this thing from Pfizer or Moderna, let's give them that pill. Could it be that your U.S. government, up until the days of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was working in collusion with the pharmaceutical companies in order to keep your kids drugged? Let me read the stat again. 27 clinical trials, 64% of the studies found that behavioral issues in children connected to eating artificial dyes, and Doritos and Cheetos are one of the big delivery mechanisms for that. A matter of fact, you could say that a lot of the modern day food that are processed that have these bright dyes and colors in them, they were simply delivery mechanisms to things that would cause you physical problems or emotional or psychological troubles, behavioral issues in your children, and then they could get you hooked on the pharmaceuticals out there. Thanks to Robert F. Kennedy's Making America Healthy Again initiative, we are starting to get a grip on this circular the revolving door between eat food, get them addicted to drugs, get them hooked on the bad foods, and then we'll get them addicted to certain pharmaceutical drugs. So good job, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't care what the fat women on the cows of the View say about you. I don't care how they attack your wife, Miss Hines, when she was on there. You have done good work in bringing attention to the fact that a lot of parents out there, people watching this program, listening to this show, are probably out there going, wow, my kid, that they wanted him on Ritalin, they wanted him on Adderall, they wanted on this thing, they said it's behavioral issues, and you didn't realize that every time you went to the grocery store and you stocked that food up that you thought was safe and you thought was healthy because the FDA approved it, you didn't realize that you were causing, with the delivery mechanism of some of these foods, some of these behavioral issues. So good on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mentioned that, and I saw some of the excerpts of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s wife going on The View the other day. And ladies, I'd like your input here. I don't know how it is that you have a man like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's accomplished, and yet he's controversial for some. And his wife goes on the program, and they should have started and said, Ms. Hines, your husband's controversial. We don't agree with everything, but let's talk about you. You're an accomplished woman. How's your life changed? What? No, they didn't ask her about her. They just asked her up there, these old battle axes on The View that somehow still get watched. And the only reason I know what happens on The View is because Fox News evidently is desperate for programming, and they run clips of The View. But if you're a lady and you have accomplishments and you're going to get interviewed, maybe have a book out or something, and all they want you to do is defend or make fun of your husband, I don't see how that's nice. And it's rather than celebrating the success, Ms. Hines is not a Republican. She's probably not a big Trump supporter. I mean, maybe she voted this time for her husband, but she's probably more politically aligned with the View, and yet they attacked her because they have such vitriol in their heart for everything Donald Trump, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is part of Donald Trump. It just shows how sad these people are. All right, coming up, Kenneth Abramowitz is scheduled to be on the program, and let's see who else. What else we're going to talk about? January the 6th, we'll talk about that. The Dems are mad that Donald Trump has found a way to pay the troops. They're upset about that. John Thune, director or head of the Senate, is saying that he just might very well force the Democrats' hands in this government shutdown. Not sure what that looks like, but we will discuss that throughout the course of the morning. All right, I got a question for you, a question of the day. We began to talk with Cheetos and Doritos, but now I want to talk about your marriage. I want to talk about your relationship with your spousal unit. I want to talk about the things that maybe break out into a little argument or discussion between you and your children or your spouse, your significant other. Now, you don't need to confess too much, but if you get dirty and juicy, we'll be posted up on the screen for everybody to see, and we will read it together. We love it if you want to air out your dirty laundry. But actually, that's something that seems to cause a fight among families. 58% of couples in a recent survey say they have had arguments over recurring smells. 58% of people say they've had arguments with their partner, their roommate, their family members over smells in shared spaces. Stuff like trash smells, post-gym stink, and pet odor smells. If you've lived with someone long enough, there's probably nothing you haven't talked about or argued about at some point. And according to a new survey, 58% of people say they've had arguments with the partner, a roommate, or a family member over recurring smells, stuff like trash smells, post-gym stink smells, and pet odors. Now, let me ask you, first of all, the question of the day, what is the strangest thing that has ever caused an argument in your house? Again, air out as much dirty laundry here as you want. We're voyeurs here, and we love to hear the dirty tales of what you're arguing about. But be honest, what's the strangest thing that has ever caused an argument in your house? Maybe it's an argument with your kids. Maybe it's with your spouse. I remember, I think one of the biggest moments of frustration in my marriage days were... I think a lot of guys feel this way. You get in the car. What do you want to eat? I don't care. What do you want? I want to go here. No, I don't want to go there. It's the strangest thing that a lot of people argue about, and people get heated about it, is if you're going out to dinner, where do you want to go out to dinner? And we went out to dinner quite a bit, and it was usually a long discussion. And then the place we would decide, I just start driving in a direction, and the place that we would finally figure out we wanted to go to was in the opposite direction. But that's the question of the day. What is the strangest thing that has caused an argument in your house? And it could be, maybe it's over the pet, maybe it's over the odors. Now, let me tell you this. 41% of people in a relationship say they have directly called out their partner for something stinky. So, hey, that stinks. You need to throw that out. You need to put that in the washer. Put that in the laundry. That thing stinks. 59% admit to secretly cleaning or spraying or airing out their partner's smelly stuff to get rid of the odor. So what I'm hearing here is, and ladies, maybe you can tell me you've had this experience, is you have some man, some guy, your hubby that comes home, and he's got his bag from the gym or something, and he sets it there, and you're like, that stinks. Get it out, put it in the laundry, and they don't. I'm going to use it again tomorrow. I'm role-playing what is maybe happening here, and he won't do it, and he's stubborn, and he doesn't want to do it, and so she secretly airs it out or puts it back in the garage so no one else has to smell it. 48% claim they even avoid certain rooms or spaces when smells become too much. Anybody who has a teenager, especially a teenage boy, that is sometimes the case, that you open the door and say, wow, I'm going to come downstairs. Let's talk. I'm not going to talk to you in here. So anyway, is it a cat litter box? Is it the gym clothes? Is it the sports gear? What's the thing that has caused most discussion, an argument in your house? Maybe it has to do with where you're going to go to dinner. Maybe it has to do with, we had this thing when I first was married. I thought this was kind of funny. I grew up in the world of big city living, right? We had a garbage disposal. Flip the switch, it sucks it all down and chops it up, right? And it wasn't an argument, but it was a realization like, oh, this will be a long road ahead of us. Is that I opened up the carton of eggs in the refrigerator, and I'm 20-something years old, and a married man now, and I've been living the bachelor lifestyle quite well, I have to say. And I opened up the carton of eggs, and rather than the spent eggshells now being in the disposal or the trash can, they were kept inside the egg carton. And so I had like 4, 5, 6 eggs that were there, but there was nothing there except the shell. And I couldn't figure it out. And her family did not have on a farm, old farmhouse, didn't have a garbage disposal. And that's just where you put them. And then later on, you'd take care of the mulch them or something like that. And I thought that was the strangest thing ever. And we had a discussion, and I'm right, you're wrong. No, it's not right. You put them in the disposal. Oh, you put them in the trash can. No, you save them. What's this? It wasn't a heated discussion, but let me tell you, from that moment forward, they always went down the garbage disposal. I won that one. That's the only one I ever won. What's the strangest thing that has caused an argument in your house? Eggshells might be the one that pops into my head right now. The strangest thing that has ever caused an argument, but again, 58% of people say they have had arguments over recurring smells. Men, I have thrown you under the bus quite a bit about recurring smells. I have caused you to be blamed for having the smelly gym bag, etc. Well, guess what? I'm going to let you tell. What is if you've argued with your spousal unit, your significant other, about smells? What is it smells that they bring to the table that you have argued about there? So there's your question of the day. We did have a cat at one point too. This was an argument, and first of all, the cat came home kind of as a stray, and I did not want the cat, and the cat came home as an act of pity. My son saw it. And anyway, the cat got a better home, and we were just kind of supposedly temporary. And it turned out to be temporary. But where you put the cat box, you got to have a place to put a cat box. Now, growing up, we had our cat box, we had cats, was in the garage. But every time the cat wanted to go use the box, they stood by the door and you had to open the door. It wasn't kind of a self-serving purpose. And we had a big laundry area, but there was no nook to put. There's no nook. You got to hide the cat box right there. And the way the floor plan was laid out, I wanted to get one of those hide the cat box, put them in a dome, and it cleans itself. And there's no place to put it. We had no convenient place to put the cat box. And I think that cat litter box got a lot of discussion. Well, why don't we put it over here? I'm not going to put it over there. Well, we could put it in there. That's a freaking closet or a cabinet. I'm not going to leave the door open all the time. The house was literally not designed for a cat box, which means we should not have a cat. But we had a cat. And that cat is no longer with us. It has moved on to a happier place. We were temporary. I was told that at the beginning. It lasted about 2 days longer than I wanted. And that was 2 days longer than it should have ever lasted. But anyway, the cat litter box, that's another argument we've had in the Lakey household. Anybody else got a strange argument, something you've actually had bickering about regarding eggshells and cat litter boxes? I could write a book. It's going to go in my marriage series and how to I'm going to go out on the road with Gary Chapman, talk about the 5 love languages and cat litter boxes and eggshells inside the carton. All right, good to have all of you here. Everybody's happy to be here. Let's dive into some more stories waiting the arrival of Kenneth Abramowitz. They confirmed to me last night that he's going to be on the program, but so far, we don't have Kenneth Abramowitz. We'll wait for him to arrive here in just a few moments. If you want to jump in to the conversation, don't forget you can comment on all the chat rooms. And we do want to hear the strangest things that you've ever had a fight about or maybe an ongoing fight or the arguments at your house. Feel free to jump into that. Love to hear some of those things. I've confessed there's been a cat litter box and eggshells, spent eggshells. I can't really think of much else that really was conflicting. Those were the two kind of silly things. I'm not a smelly person. I'm very hygienic, very clean. I'm the clean one. So if there's anybody that was making smells, it wasn't me. My son is it's like a college dorm room and a high school locker room. That's there's discussion about, you just figure a boy that they're going to grow out of it one day. They're going to get a girlfriend and have to start cleaning up their smelliness. So that's all right. Give us your confession. Love to hear it on all the platforms out there, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, Rumble, X, etc., and all the feeds out there. Love to hear from each of you. All right. We did the Doritos and Cheetos Go Maha story, and I just find that amazing, and I want that to sink in, that all this time the Food and Drug Administration has allowed these foods, whether it's Frito-Lay or PepsiCo or any of these processed food companies, to put these artificial dyes in the food, knowing that there have been studies linking them to behavioral issues in children, and they just kept doing it because they were allowed to. Now, they weren't allowed to do a lot of this stuff in Canada, weren't allowed to do a lot of this stuff in Europe, but here in the United States of America, our FDA and the bureaucrat criminals that those guys sometimes seem to be, they would allow it. They would allow stuff in food that other countries around the globe will not allow in food, and they did that. Could it be because many of them are bought and paid for by the big pharmaceutical companies that they can cause and trigger behavioral issues in your children? Then doggone it, that's going to have to be treated medically rather than go to the root. That's our American medical system. We don't ever treat the root of the cause. We just treat the symptoms. And that's what modern medicine has devolved to in America. And rather than just kind of get down to the root of what's causing these behavioral issues, we got a pill that will mask that behavioral issues, and that it's just not working. And good job on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for bringing that to our attention, and good job for Doritos and Cheetos and PepsiCo for making the changes that they shall be making. I hope they make them very, very, very quickly. There's the Supreme Court's very active. They're back in session. They're back from their summer break they took, and they have had a couple of very interesting cases this week. One of those is regarding the voter rights bills. And if you heard these arguments, I heard it replayed on television. There's no television camera inside the Supreme Court, but there's audio. And Ketanji Brown Jackson, who President Biden appointed to the Supreme Court, and he says, "I'm going to find a black woman." And then he says, "She's the most qualified person I can find, and she's black." He said it wrong. What he should have done, "I'm going to go find the most qualified woman out there," and it happens to be Ketanji Brown Jackson. He didn't say that. Joe Biden just basically said, "She's a black woman. She's a DEI hire, and she's the most qualified of the black women that I could find," but he didn't say she was overall the most qualified. And so she's not really, I wouldn't say the brightest bulb, the sharpest crayon, not the sharpest pencil, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. You get the idea. When it comes to judicial prudence and constitutional savvy, let's just say that she's no Clarence Thomas, right? And so she goes up there and she says, "Well, we have to allow the vote with this bill, this case that was being heard." She basically said, if you're black, that it's kind of like being handicapped, and you need to have the protections of the Americans with Disability Act, but also the Voter Act, because she likened to the color of your skin to being a handicap, which is a very strange argument to make, especially if you're wanting to, I guess, win friends and influence people. It was a very bizarre line of questioning, but what the fallout of this could be is that if the Supreme Court says, "Listen, we've gone, this is what happens. You put a law in place and the pendulum swings too far, and you got to get it back and correct it. And every action has that equal and opposite reaction. When the pendulum swings, it's going to swing back." And what this is about is in Louisiana, they were drawing up congressional districts, and they had one congressional district that was going to be predominantly black. And they said, "Well, you need to," the court said, "No, they have to have two. They have to have two. Look at the numbers." So they did. Basically, the argument was, listen, if this would have been a white Republican district and you would have crammed too many people in, you would not have said, "Oh, no, we have to turn that into two districts. They have to have two seats in Congress." In other words, they created an extra seat in Congress just because the lower court forced them to create an extra district and carve out a district so that there would be an extra black dominant district. And the Supreme Court's like, "Listen, you should not be designing white dominant districts. You shouldn't be designing Asian dominant district, Latino. You should just be designing districts that are the best for the people." And if you look at the Louisiana map, all of it is Republican, but right down the middle, it looks like a amoeba, right down the middle of the state, almost from the northeast corner to the northwest corner to the southeast corner. It is a district, a congressional district, and they had to draw it that way because they had to draw districts based on race. And is that what we should be doing? Is saying, okay, let's create a white district and a black district and a Latino district? Because I know darn well that there would be some fantastic people of color that could represent me. I got no problem. But the courts and the people doing these districts said, "No, we only have black people represent black people. We got to draw it to where only the crackers will represent the crackers." And the Supreme Court's hearing that, and it could make a big change here. There's another Supreme Court case that got heard this week. And again, it takes a few weeks weeks or months for us to get the answers. But there could be a big change, and they think that there's up to 19 districts in America, 19 congressional districts that have been drawn simply based on racial considerations, and the Supreme Court is going to say you can't draw a district just simply based on, well, that's the black district. Because you're segregating voters is what you're doing. It's like, that's the black side of town, that's the white side of town, that's this side of town. And the Supreme Court says you can't do that when it comes to dividing. I think the Supreme Court's going to say you cannot do that when setting voter boundaries, and we're going to have to create an all-black district. And in order to do so, they cut the state almost in half and just went crazy. And their only parameter was they wanted it to be a majority black. So they just basically gerrymandered, and look at the map. It looks crazy all the way through Louisiana to have an all-black district, and it's not going over well, and the Supreme Court will find out. Now, there's another case that has hit the Supreme Court this week we haven't talked about. The Supreme Court is now going to hear a case. The Idaho trans athlete wanted to have the case dropped, did not want it to go to the Supreme Court, but the Judge David Nye, appointed by Trump in 2017, rejected the release of this, said, no, this is going to go to the Supreme Court. You don't just get a win at the lower court and check out. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, and the case is about it's about boys in men's sports and trans athletes out there. And the athlete knows that their time is coming to an end. The trans thing is fizzling, I think, a little bit. The numbers show that there's people identifying trans has cut in half in the last 2 years. It had the social phenom or the social frenzy as seemingly dying off, and is making its way through the courts at the same time. And some of these trans people are like, oh, we won. I got to compete. I got my gold medal there at Boise State. No, don't take this to the Supreme Court. And the judge says, no, you're going to file a lawsuit. It's going if you win, lose, and somebody wants to appeal, let's go to the Supreme Court. We're not going to dismiss this. And this is only the trans community trying to stop everything, because they realize they have used courts to stop Donald Trump with temporary injunctions. And now with patience winning the race, they're starting to lose some of these things in the court. The very courtrooms that they thought they were going to permanently stop Donald Trump with are the very courtrooms that are coming out and saying, no, you cannot draw up a congressional district just based on the color of people's skin. And no, biological boys should not be competing against girls, and it's just not fair. And again, they have used the weapons in the courtroom with radical judges as a temporary injunction against Donald Trump, and it goes to the Supreme Court. And now, over the course of a few years, a lot of these crazy cases and bad politics by the American left are making their way through the court. And looks like the Supreme Court was going to make some pretty epic rulings here in the next several months. And that's just this week. The trans athlete case was heard. The voting rights case was heard. And based on the makeup of the court, it will be interesting to see how the rulings come down. Also, one more quick thought I had this as I was thinking about the Supreme Court last night. It will be interesting to see. I'm not suggesting it should happen. A lot of people on the left thought Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired before she passed away, so that Obama would have had the chance to replace her into the Supreme Court. Instead, Donald John Trump got to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And so there's some speculation and thought all the time, and it's going to happen after the midterm election. It's going to happen that they're going to start speculating as to who it is that could be or should be stepping aside from the Supreme Court. All right, let me go to Kenneth Abramowitz real quick. I had him down at 8:15, but he pops in at 8:30. Maybe we had a mix-up on time. But let's go to Mr. Abramowitz, and we got Michael Lett standing by on deck as well. Everybody stand by. Mr. Abramowitz, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Sorry for the confusion. I was confused too, but here I am.
All right, very good. We'll go very quickly because I got another guest scheduled to this slot, so I want to get you in here, and we'll scold Kim or Sutton or whoever for confusing both of us. That's what we'll do. Mr. Abramowitz, historic week in the Middle East, and Donald Trump getting accolades. I think he's the only person in world history that can go from 1 hour speaking at the Knesset and Israel, the parliament there, fly and receive a warm welcome by the Arab nations in Egypt, all within a matter of hours Give me that perspective. Donald Trump swept in here, and did he do the impossible? Did he thread the needle that nobody else could thread?
Well, he thread half the needle. So let me talk about the half that he threaded and the other half that's still a work in progress. So in terms of the whole plan was divided into phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 was get the hostages back. Now there's 2 groups of hostages, the 20 living, he got those back. So that's like A+++, to do that in like a few day period of time. The second, still in phase 1, is to get the 28 deceased hostages back. That's an extra problem, and Hamas is slow walking that purposely because they want to antagonize Israel. They want to torture, so to speak, the families involved to not get their loved ones, even though they're deceased, into a proper burial. And they don't want to go to phase 2, which is disarming Hamas. So now we're sort of like in a stalemate of the, so he's got to pressure Hamas to give up the 28 deceased hostages. And then Hamas right now is going on a killing spree and is basically genociding, if that's a word, the population of Gaza. So that's another mess that has to be addressed. And he's publicly said they're going to be disarmed. He just didn't say how.
Yeah. The voice of Kenneth Abramowitz, by the way, he's the author of a book called The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. He's the founder of SaveTheWest.com, a website dedicated to saving Western civilization from itself, SaveTheWest.com. Mr. Abramowitz, I hear that some of these Arab countries and Muslim countries have been asked perhaps to go in there and kind of police the streets and kind of maybe they can stop some of this killing and genociding. Nobody seems to want to go in there. Donald Trump sets up the kind of the perfect peace and says, hey, you guys have to help out. I know you want to be the signing ceremony, but why don't you go in there and help kind of bring order to the streets of Gaza? Am I hearing this right? No one wants to do this?
Well, welcome to the Middle East. In the Middle East, nothing makes sense. So other than military means. So the reason he got all the Arab countries and the Muslim countries to agree is that it was sort of like a jump ball, like in basketball. And so Egypt thinks they're going to take over Gaza. Turkey and Qatar, they think they're taking over Gaza. And Saudi Arabia and the Emirates think they're taking over Gaza. And so, but it hasn't been resolved who's going to take over Gaza. I personally think Israel should take over Gaza because Israel fought for Gaza. The other people didn't fight for Gaza. Israel did all the dirty work, by the way, for the Muslim countries too, to get rid of Hamas. I think Israel should finish the job. But anyways, President Trump has to make the decision. Who does he want to finish the job, whether it's Egypt, Qatar and Turkey, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, or Israel? And he's got to figure that out.
It seems like if you want to run the place, you ought to be volunteering, saying, we'll go in, we'll solve the problems, we'll stop this. And that way, possession is 9/10 of the law. How does this, I guess, pan out in the long term is yet to be seen. It is interesting, though. I want to come back to you're talking about saving Western civilization. We've had players in Western civilization that have been declaring that it's Israel that are the genociders. They're the ones doing bad stuff in the genocide, free Palestine. And now you find out that Palestine, quote, has been freed and there's genocide happening at the hands of Hamas, who they thought were the victims, etc. We've got to saving the West. We can bring peace to the Middle East, but we got a lot of ill-informed people right here in Western civilization here in the United States about what happened there, what is happening, and what's going to happen.
Yes. Well, basically, the good guys, in other words, Western civilization or democracy, have to set the rules for the bad guys. Otherwise, obviously, the bad guys will set the rules for the good guys. And so Trump has to put his foot down. And putting your foot down is 2 stages. First, you have to say, I'm going to put my foot down. In other words, I'm going to threaten you, whoever you are, to do something. And the second is to actually put your foot down and do it. You know what I mean? It's a 2-step process. So President Trump is good at announcing plans. he's not as good because it's difficult to follow through and get those plans enacted. So it's a two-step process, and President Trump's going through that two-step right now.
Yeah. Kenneth Abramos, we got to cut it here. I know we had the mix up on time. You yell at Kim, I'll yell at you. Yell at everybody. It'll be all good. Well, then we'll have to have a peace deal brought to you by Donald Trump. I'll get you back on when we can spend more time. Your website, though, is savethewest.com, savethewest.com. And I believe the name of the book is called The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Mr. Abramowitz, I'll let you plug away. Savethewest.com, and a great book. Go ahead.
Yes, and everyone should sign up. It's complimentary. There's a pop-up menu. You sign up. I write an article every 2 weeks. You get the article right to your email. And if you want, you can use the website as a link to Amazon to buy the book. It's 5 years old, but I created 4 editions. It's now in the 4th edition. It's only 3 months old. Everyone should go right to the last chapter and read the current update.
SaveTheWest.com, free newsletter updates, sign up, get the book itself. Mr. Abramowitz, appreciate you. Kenneth Abramowitz, appreciate you coming on the program. SaveTheWest.com, SaveTheWest.com, SaveTheWest.com. All right, I mentioned Michael Letts was coming on the show. Michael Letts is set to be on 9 minutes ago because we had a little mix-up on the previous one. That's all right. We're all good friends, and we all get along, and kumbaya, kumbaya, kumbaya. Delilah, craft a harshly worded letter to Kim for screwing up the times. No, just kidding. Write it real quick. All right, Michael Letts, a law enforcement extraordinaire, investusa.org. He's waiting patiently in the green room. Michael, good morning, sir. How are you? Thanks for your patience.
Always a privilege with you, Jimmy, and you've got great guests, great show, so certainly I'm happy to wait on it.
Well, I apologize. He was supposed to be on a 15 and should have played, and that just happens. I'll scold her later. Michael, let's dive into this thing. Lawlessness. I keep thinking we're going to settle down here, but it looks like old Pritzker up in Illinois is really relishing and seeing his political moment come that he can have these protesters on the streets. They're ramming the vehicles of ICE. Judges are saying you have to take down the fencing around the ICE facility so that the terrorist and Mr. Pritzker's fans can attack and kill people more easily that are in the ICE facility. That's my estimation is what the court ruling is. Is Illinois about to become ground zero for political chaos in America?
Yes, it is. Let me tell you why I say that. It's not just Illinois. Blue states are coordinating. We've just discovered this among themselves, strategizing as to basically for an insurrection and how to overthrow the government. You say, how would you be so harsh? Here's their motive. Here's what they're saying is, we are just going to start doing our own thing and ignoring feds. We're going to block them at every turn. We're not going to recognize their authority, and we're going to to run our state, our area the way we want to. Poses some interesting questions before we get into the practicality of that. Jimmy, is so what are you saying? That means you don't want any more federal dollars either. You don't want your infrastructure. You don't want your highway funds, Medicare, Medicaid, et cetera, and what does that do to the citizens? If I were to live in that state, I paid into Social Security, but now that's a federal issue. So are the feds going to block that? Unfortunately, I'm harmed because I'm living in the wrong state. It just really poses some very significant issues that we're going to have to address as a nation. What they want to do, Jimmy, I hate to say this, is they're asking for another civil war. They're asking for a succession. They're asking for, if I don't get my way, we're going to do our own thing and have our own union of blue states. The problem, Jimmy, is that in the last election, we very clearly said we saw what you have to offer policy-wise as a blue state. We soundly rejected it. It didn't work. It brought in additional crime, crashed the economy, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want any part about it. And I don't think you can have both of them coexisting. And the reason why I say that, Jimmy, is so you're going to have people commit crimes in Illinois and then rush over to another state. But why should the feds get involved to help track those down since you don't recognize federal authority anymore?
Yep.
It just really poses an issue that we as a country are going to have to resolve very quickly. And I believe that we have shown our policies are working, and it's time that we step up the ante and put these people in place.
Yeah, the end game again. This weekend, these crazy leftists that are paid protesters are going to have a no kings protest across America. By the way, if we had a king in America, you wouldn't be protesting. I'm just saying that's in and of itself shows you that we don't have a king. Donald Trump doesn't want to be your king. But it's fascinating that what they're protesting, and they're like, well, we're protesting tyranny, protesting Donald Trump. No, all Donald Trump is doing, rounding up the illegals, etc. He's enforcing federal law. This has nothing to do with Orange Man bad. This has nothing to do with he's just being a dictator. He's agitating. No, there's laws on the books of the state that say how you get to be here, how you get to stay here, and he's finding the people that are violating the law. And it seems as if they're not saying it this way, but it's evident that all of these protesters, Pritzker, etc., they don't want the law. They don't like the law. They want us to be a lawless country, I guess. I mean, is Pritzker? He may want anarchy at the buffet at the Golden Corral, but I'm telling you, is he wanting anarchy on the streets here?
Well, that's what it seems, because quite frankly, Jimmy, let's just a couple other quick things that have occurred in the last 24 hours. The cartels in southern Mexico, and you remember I grew up down there, so I'm very familiar with them, have a pool of resources now that they're putting a bounty on the head of every ICE agent that can be killed and demonstrated that was shot and killed in the line of duty. They're going to be paying out big dollars to those that are willing to accept that challenge. We also found out that yesterday that a couple warehouses in Portland owned by the Communist Chinese Party, not just by citizens of China, but owned by the communist government itself. And inside those warehouses, we discovered that there was tactical vests, shields, body armor, ballistics, etc. And they were giving them to members of Antifa who came by already dressed out in little black outfits to go to protest. So we now have evidence that we have a foreign government that is now trying to subvert and undermine and overthrow the American government. This is becoming a very troublesome issue that we're going to have to get very harsh on and very fierce very quickly, or they're trying to shut us down and bring us into anarchy.
I saw the transportation department is pulling $40 million back from California because after that truck driver killed a family, didn't understand English. He's a license out of California, but all that, they said, you got to make sure that you're not giving licenses, CDLs, to people who don't understand English. And every state of the union has complied except Gavin Newsom's California. And so Sean Duffy says $40 million of highway money. I'm not sure how much that is going to affect California. But again, here's Gavin Newsom running for president in his mind. Once again, standing on the side of lawlessness. It is federal law, federal regulation that you need to be able to pass an English proficiency class, read the signs in English if you're going to be driving a big rig or a truck or a bus out there. And here's Gavin Newsom, like Pritzker, going, I don't care about the damn law. I have such vitriol for Donald Trump that we'll put all the illegal non-English speaking people out with a CDL out there. Again, once again, a blue state, an idiotic governor, and just ignoring the rule of law.
Well, to codify what you're saying there, Jimmy, I mean, let's look at what their policies did over the last 4 years. California, I think, is hilarious. They're bankrupt. They think that, we're going to do whatever we want to do. We don't need you, the federal government. They're begging the federal government just to keep their doors open. And their policy on illegals have produced the highest crime rates anywhere in the country. They're in blue states. They're in blue cities. There's the highest crime rates. Every one of their policies has failed. Now their citizens are trying desperately to get out of there. They're trying to leave those states. What do they think they're going to offer the people that remain? The only people that remain are people who can't get out. They're going to bring them down and destroy them with themselves. And that's just not what America's all about. I support the president. It's time that we rescue the American people who are being held hostage in these democratic blue states and blue cities to policies that are leading to their ultimate destruction. Enough's enough, Jimmy.
Yeah. Michael Letts, investusa.org. If you're listening on the podcast later on the show, later on the day, and you hear audio version only, investusa.org is the website you want to go to, investusa.org. We'll talk about more with that with Michael in just a second. And by the way, thousands of earballs. We did the math again. Thousands of earballs will hear this show by the end of the day, end of the week. And we appreciate Michael, Kenneth Abramowitz, everybody for coming on the program. And of course, you for listening. Thousands of earballs will hear or see what you're seeing, and it's a growing phenomenon that's out there, especially on the podcast after the fact. Michael, this is going to bring a story that really I don't think it has to do with Pritzker or Gavin Newsom, but it's one that I think is kind of not far, probably down the road from you. Headline: shooting at a packed South Carolina bar kills 4 and injures at least 20 others. St. Helena Island, South Carolina, mass shooting early Sunday at a crowded bar in the idyllic island considered to be the largest gulag community, the South Carolina East Coast. 4 dead, 20 injured. That's out kind of in your neighborhood, sir. What's happening?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Jimmy. Let me very quickly give the circumstance behind it. That is, Beaufort is one of the most high destination resort places that we have in the state. It's packed all the time. And quite frankly, this was a high school alumni association for a reunion that were coming down. And they, of course, went to the reunion and then went to the bar afterwards to all hang out. There got to be some bad blood. There's some gang members that are involved that came in from out of state. And this was drive-by shootings. Now, why is all that important? Understand that South Carolina is one of the most conservative areas around, Jimmy. So what I want to do is, first of all, sympathize with the rest of the country. This criminal issue is just getting out of hand. It's going everywhere. It's not like you can say, don't live up north, you'll be fine living in the south. It's everywhere. So we have got to start making sure that we are much more harsh on these efforts. And what we've discovered so far is the participants appear to be hardened criminals that have been getting out repeatedly, and we're going to track them down and find them and hold them to justice here in South Carolina. But it gets back to the issue that we've been talking about across the country. How many times, Jimmy, now do you and I discuss on almost a weekly basis people that have been committed crimes 20, 30 times, 40 times, and they get out every time they go out, they finally do enough damage that somebody takes notice. We have got a corrupt judicial system besides some of the other things that have been occurring in this country, and it's time we figure out how to reform it.
It is. I was even reading this story over this week that the 15-year-old attackers that attacked Big Balls up in Washington, D.C., they're getting like probation, house arrest. I mean, they literally probably could have killed the guy, and really a slap on the wrist because the judge there in Washington, D.C. says, well, juvenile court is not a place for incarceration. It's a place for rehabilitation. And yet in Washington, D.C., you have the big gangs that will use the youngsters to commit the crime because they know they won't have to do the time. Lawlessness is a real thing, and that sentencing on the Big Balls attackers is part of that. That's case in point.
Well, and to follow up with that, just over the weekend, you had the riots in Boston and Massachusetts and Randolph, Maryland, where they were drag racing down, on Main Street, about 100 of them. Police were called out. The police couldn't get out of the vehicles. They attacked the vehicles. They set one on fire. They tried to, using steel poles, trying to smash in the windows, damaging the vehicles, trying to burn the officers that were in the one that they set on fire. And here's where the tragedy. When they picked them up, those that were responsible, picked them up on video, took them to court, $500 and $1,000 bonds is what were given. They're back out on the street before we can even process the paperwork, Jimmy. This is what I'm saying. Whether now it's going to like South Carolina, like we just talked about, etc. It is across the country. It is time we start going to the source. And I believe we need to have penalties for these activist judges. If they can't do their job, they need to not only be impeached and removed, but they need to be held accountable as well.
Michael, that's always a pleasure. Invest USA is how you're trying to help law enforcement that's under attack by the American left and crazies out there on the streets. You want them to have protective gear on the streets. You're providing that. InvestUSA.org. Talk about the website. Talk about how people can help, sir.
They go to our website. That's INVESTUSA.org. It's a charity. You'll be able to make sure you can be involved with helping to protect our officers with active shooter vests. Folks, active shooter vests will stop anything, a long rifle round as well. And that's what we need nowadays because that's what they're using. And let me encourage you, folks, when you're talking about ICE now having a bounty on their head from the cartels, when you're talking about all these crazies that are trying to keep our law enforcement from doing their job, it's difficult enough to make sure we're keeping cops, much less trying to expand our force. Please show your support because if they don't think the American public is behind them, we're going to lose our cops on the street, and then we will lose hope. Anarchy will prevail.
Let me ask you one quick question. We have people like Mom Donnie in New York, and I don't really care. I mean, New York, they've been crazy for a long time. But do cops on the streets, when they're sitting in their patrol cars, whether it's in South Carolina, North Carolina, New York City, when they see these people, these politicians that they know despise them? I mean, Pritzker's talking about one day after Trump goes out of office, prosecuting ICE officers who live in his state. Do officers on the street hear this? Whether they're federal, state, or local, do they hear this? Are they affected by it? What do you think goes through their head right now?
Tremendously. I'm getting calls 24 hours a day now, Jimmy. And what the questions that is becoming to me is they're asking me, they're saying, hey, all your experience, what's going on, is it worth it? What advice would you give me? And here's the sadness. I used to be able to say, well, don't go to that jurisdiction. They don't appreciate you. Come someplace where they do. Well, this virus is spreading across the country. That's why you're hearing me saying in very urgent tones, if we don't, as a nation and as a people, show our support for first responders, we're going to lose them. And nobody else is going to step up to take their place. And then this country will be terminated. It'll be over.
Yep. InvestUSA.org. Michael Letts, it's a pleasure, sir. I appreciate you hopping on. We had a question of the day. I kept you late. 58% of couples have had arguments over recurring smells in their house, and it could be a gym bag, it could be the pet smell. I'm not going to ask you what the most big recurring argument is between you and the Mrs. Letts, but you've already confessed at times that she has a cast iron skillet ready for you at any moment.
Yeah, she does, but here's where that cast iron has slightly changed. I told you we just had 11 puppies, and so that's all you can smell in the house, and so it covers anything else. I have a reprieve for a few weeks or months until those puppies get out of the house. So right now I'm good, but I'm sure that cast iron skillet will come back after the puppies are gone.
Right there. Did you get Pam Bondi, your puppy, Baron? They all want puppies.
They all want puppies, and we're bringing them up there. They understand they get weaned at 8 weeks or 6 weeks old now, so 8 to 10 weeks. We don't have long till we get this mission accomplished.
Michael Letts, InvestUSA.org. He can be as smelly as he wants at the house and blame it on the puppies, at least for a couple more weeks. InvestUSA.org. InvestUSA.org. Yep, the cast iron skillet. Yep, that happens. 58% of couples have had arguments over recurring smells. And the question of the day is, what is the craziest? Oh, by the way, Rachel says, what kind of puppies? They are Dobermans. Michael's already cut Michael off. So Dobermans puppies. And I think they're kind of rare, something like a white Doberman. So, yeah. All right. Good morning, Arloa says, driving back to East Texas today. Well, Arloa, glad you're listening to us while you drive, and keep both hands on the wheels and all four tires on the road. That's what we like to do. All right, let's catch up on the comments coming in from the Peanut Gallery. Biden SCOTUS, that's Supreme Court of the United States, for those who go to public schools. DEI hire, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, for those who went to the public schools, is KBJ, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who can't even define what a woman is in spite of being one. But hey, she did say from the bench of the Supreme Court that being black, which she is kind of like being disabled. It was the most bizarre argument that I've ever heard on the Supreme Court dais. It was weird, but it's Ketanji Brown Jackson, and there you have it. DEI or at DEI hire at work. Okay, there's one on the screen. Talk about the food making people meaner. It is behavioral issues happening from the food. This is the Maha movement, right? Cheetos and Doritos coming to the altar of Maha, and they're going to get their heart right with some of these dyes. But isn't it amazing? Again, this is why you say, why do you question the CDC? Why do you not like Dr. Fauci? Because they've been lying to you. There's so many things that you have been lied to, and then all of a sudden you start questioning it. You're like, don't question Dr. Fauci. Why? He's a liar. Don't question the pharmaceuticals. Why? They've lied to you so often. And this is why I think it's important to point out this Cheeto and Dorito stuff, that they're going to take these 5 or 6 dyes that are in all their Cheetos that scientific study have said have caused behavioral issues, especially in children. And that was considered conspiracy theory. No, it's real stuff. And now PepsiCo is saying, yeah, we're going to change the formula, get rid of some of those and do some of these. We can get the flavor. We're going to do those dyes and those bright colors that are so appealing. We're going to get rid of that. So I got to tell you, it's I've said this for years, question everything, especially if a politician or a bureaucrat or a government official saying it. You need to question it because there's usually something else to it. And in this case, follow the money. What do you do you FDA, you don't go out there and you don't criticize the dyes. You don't do that. Why? Because you've got big pharmaceutical companies that are helping get your politicians elected. And if your politicians elected with their donors and their dark money they get in there, then guess what? You're going to get to keep your job and your scientific appointments. So question everything, my friends. And yes, keep questioning. All right. Again, question of the day. I see some of you are shy. Some of these questions of the day, you guys are all over, right? You guys like, it's miles and miles of printed papers and comments. This one, I guess, is a little too personal for some of you. But we're going to go to Jay Ratliff. But let me give the question of the day again, because we'll wrap up the show with some of these responses after Jay. 58% of Americans say they've had arguments with a partner, roommate, family member, their spouse over a recurring smell in a shared space. The example is in a new survey, 58% of people say they've had arguments or discussions with their partner, their spouse, their roommate, or family member over recurring smells in shared space. Stuff like trash smells, post-gym stink, pet odors. I remember how many times I'd have to tell my son after football practice, go get your shoes out of the back of my car. They stink. I know you had to change, get them out of your car, whatever. The argument, I'm busy. No, go get them out right now. And so feel free. What is the strangest thing that you've ever has caused an argument in your house? Love to hear from you. 58% of Americans say they've had arguments over recurring smells. And maybe it's about where you're going to go to dinner. That was a big one. I talked about the eggshells, whether they went in the carton after they were spent, or the trash, or the garbage disposal. That was one. And also where the cat litter box goes when we had a cat. Yeah. Strange arguments, things that you're like, why is this a huge discussion, but it becomes an argument? What are those things? Feel free to type them up in the chats, and we'll put them up here on the screen. And feel free, give us all your dirty laundry. We would like to know it. We will not use it in divorce court against you. We won't. We'll destroy the evidence. What are the strangest arguments you've ever had? What are the things you fought about? 58% of American couples say they have fought over recurring smells in shared spaces. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Ratliff, aviation and travel expert, joins us on this glorious day the Lord has made every week at this time. Jay Ratliff, good morning, sir. How are you?
Boy, I tell you, the topics I step into when you and I get together, my friend, I can tell you that. I can tell you, Sherry and I, my wife and I, have not had ongoing arguments over smells. If you threw in kids, yes.
Yeah.
The shoes and things, absolutely. But, my wife is really particular on smells, because when you go do laundry, she has certain detergent and softeners she uses for sheets, different ones for towels, different for clothes. It's like a chemistry lab when you go in there. When we got married 18 years ago, I kind of stroll in to do the laundry, and she's screaming, no.
Don't touch it.
No, because you don't know which sheets go with what laundry. So I just leave that chemistry to her and go from there, including the the Gain scented garbage bags to make sure that we're in good shape there. So yes, I'm pleased to report no issues with spouse, only with kids.
Smells. I mean, we could all argue about the smells on an airplane, those lavatory airplanes.
Oh, Lord.
I'm not sure how often they ever get cleaned, let alone deep cleaned. But I remember when I first started flying a lot when I was in the music world and promoting artists and managing concerts and et cetera. I remember I finally, flying was just kind of a college thing for me. And then I started a business, and I'm becoming a frequent flyer, and I'm up there in the front of the plane this time, finally in the big seat. I finally get the upgrade. I finally am a big boy traveler, and I'm like, okay, I got to go to the lavatory here. It's going to be better. It's going to be fancier. It's going to be more lovely. And I walked in, it was just as nasty as the one in the back of the plane that I put up with. And what I thought was funny, this was an American Airlines. They had taken a bag of coffee, like a coffee filtered bag, and had coffee, and it was hanging on the door where the coach had hanged to try to absorb the odors. And I was like, well, it ain't much classier in the bathroom. It may be a first class seat, but not a first class toilet.
Well, when you have a good first class flight attendant, and Sherry and I fly first class, but we don't pay the first class fares. We like to get those non-refundable, it's called a Z fare on Delta. That's a fraction of the cost of first class if you can buy a non-refundable ticket. But the flight attendant will go in and clean regularly as he or she can do, as they're taking care of the first class passengers. Normally in coach, that's not the case. Now, I can tell you, as a general manager for Northwest Airlines, we were graded big time on the lavatories. They had to be dumped every night. They had to be serviced. They had to be cleaned. They had to be scrubbed. And there's a lot of times my station failed an inspection because they pop in unexpectedly and do an aircraft cleaning audit, checking to make sure that there's no trash in the seat pockets, making sure the wall's been wiped down, lavatory clean, those kinds of things. But Jimmy, that was 20 some years ago. These days, it's a much different thing where they're not really looked at as much, only evidenced by the fact of what you see when you go in there. And it can be just disgusting. And if you ever had one of those, CSI lights that the black lights, you could
just no.
Yeah. When I see people letting their kids walk in there barefooted, I'm just thinking, oh, good Lord, no, please, somebody stop them, because it's just not sanitary at all. It's a science project.
We gotta get to the topics at hand, but I'll tell you, I think I told this story to you, maybe not. A couple of years ago, I was flying back from Washington, D.C., and I was going to be in the front of the plane, and anyway, the bottom line is security comes running through. Someone walks on the plane ahead of me. It's Nancy Pelosi, and I'm on the final row of first class, and she's in the seat right in front of me. She's right in front of me, and I'm behind Nancy the whole time. And I didn't kick the seat. I didn't spill anything.
Good man.
I didn't say anything. But I didn't even tweet that I was on the plane with her because I didn't want anything deemed as a threat or anything like that. She's just flying. So I just stayed low, and I even secretly snapped a photo walking by so I could prove that it was Nancy right in front of me. But
was she a polite fellow flyer?
Yeah,
I mean,
she was kept to herself. People say hi to her. She read the newspaper. She was she seemed very pleasant. Again, the cameras weren't on her, so she was fine. So I'm about to stand up and go to the toilet. And, you have one more chance to use the laboratory before we come into landing in Denver from D.C. And about the time I stood up, she stands up.
Right.
And she heads up to that little closet they call the lavatory up there.
Right.
And I'm now waiting outside the lavatory after Nancy Pelosi's in there. And so Nancy does her business, and I'm like, well, they didn't go and pre-clean it for her. She's in there dealing with the same stuff all of us deal with. And then I walk in, she holds the door open, and we, scoot around each other. And I walk in the lavatory, and Nancy Pelosi walks out of the lavatory, and I didn't want to touch the toilet seat. I was like, I lift that thing up. No, I don't want to lift that thing up. I didn't. That was my story. It's a true story, though. I didn't. I was like, if I lift this toilet seat up to do my business, I know what might have just been there.
Yeah, well, I guess that's could be the thing of nightmares. I don't know. I don't want to go there, but but a lot of these people, when you meet them, and through the years, the decades I was at the airport, I came into contact with presidents, prime ministers, and most of them are just as easygoing as can be, and most of them are a lot better than some of the actors and athletes I encountered, either because they have to be, or this is at a time also in the 80s and 90s when not everybody could record every moment of your life, where you weren't allowed to have a bad moment, a bad time, a bad, word or anything like that. Just, please don't be human, because somebody's going to capture it on film somewhere and it's going to live with you forever. So, but I'm glad you had a good lavatory experience with Nancy Pelosi.
I never thought I'd share the toilet with her, but the shoes seem nice. As
long as you took turns, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we did. I'm not going to go. There's so many things I could say, but I'm not going to say.
I'm not. Yeah, I go back to like I told you. I don't know what I'm going to step into when we get here.
Let's go to the topics at hand.
Please.
You mentioned flying Delta. I tend to fly United because of just where the hubs are that we both fly. Evidently, Delta and United doing good because of you and I.
In fact, Delta third quarter, I think they announced they exceeded their expectations. Their profit, third quarter, $1.42 billion. United's third quarter profit was a much more resigned $900 million profit. And both airlines cited premium seats as being one of the driving forces, saying we're getting a lot more demand for the premium seats, not the first class, business class, but a lot of the coach plus kind of seats on their aircraft, which was certainly something. But when you look at it, last year, 2024, the big four airlines, United, Southwest, American, Delta, collectively, they made $8 billion in profit. Now, when you break down their profits to the average revenue seat mile, and you look at all the boring stuff within the earnings, they actually lost money on transporting passengers.
Wow.
The money they made credit cards, the ancillary fares, and things of this nature is where all that came in. So, thankfully, because of competition, thank God for low-cost carriers, they're forced to keep their fares low. A lot of the fees and things kind of creep up and eat at us, but just amazing to think that the cost of transportation, they can't make money on. It's the credit cards and all those additional fees is where they make these. I mean, the idea that United last year had multiple quarters where they reported a profit of $1 billion. Look, in the 80s and 90s, airlines weren't making any money. In fact, Delta was losing so much money, the employees came together to buy them a 767 aircraft and give it to them, paid off as a present from the employees. It was called the Spirit of Delta, and it was one of the greatest things you could see, at the time. And now, of course, Delta is giving back to those same employees through a profit sharing that they give out every 14th of February. Yes, happy Valentine's Day. And I can tell you, when employees see we just had a quarterly profit of $1.4 billion, I mean, they're exiting the calendar counting down to Valentine's Day, because sometimes they get 15 to 20% of their annual salary as a profit sharing. So, Delta's doing a lot of things right, and they're crediting the demand for the premium seats, and their response to that is one of the big driving factors, which I think is exceptional.
The voice of Jay Ratliff. Jay, real quick, let's go to Boeing upstream. You have the actual airlines. Well, they're flying these Boeings or Airbus. Boeing has been in trouble for the last several years. A lot of different problems, PR problems, internal problems, safety issues. How's Boeing doing, sir?
They are closing the gap. In fact, I was looking at some numbers. If I can glance at them here real quick. And normally, Boeing and Airbus, it's 50-50 as far as the split. But Airbus has delivered 568 aircraft through the first months of the year. Boeing, 440. So we're seeing that the Boeing starting to close the gap here. But what's really telling is the number of back orders these aircraft manufacturers have. Airbus right now has a backlog of jets ordered, waiting to be built, 8,716. Boeing has a backlog of 6,531. That is 15,000 jets that have been ordered that have yet to be delivered. That means if you put an order in today, maybe the next presidential administration you might get it. It's going to be down the road big time. And that's one of the reasons when you see airlines buy other carriers, you're thinking, what would motivate airline A to buy airline B when there doesn't seem to be that big a fit? A lot of times it's because that airline that's buying them wants their aircraft, because you can immediately increase the fleet you have if you buy another carrier, if you like whatever type of aircraft they happen to use. And, because if you buy something, I mean, you're looking at quite a ways before that bad boy is going to be delivered to you, given the fact that 15,000 jets collectively back between those two aircraft manufacturers.
Wow. Boeing, they got a long ways to go. They had a long run of PR campaign, PR slurs, and brought it on by themselves. So we wish them well. I know you've been a long time follower of them and like them, and you're waiting for them to start doing better.
And I'll tell you, in 5 years, if their promises of we're going to do better are real or not. Like an idiot, I believed them 5 years ago after coming out of the Boeing MAX crashes, where they said, we've learned our lesson. We're going to do better. We're going to be the Boeing of old. And of course, what we found is they've not. In fact, if anything, they've been worse than what they had been before. And I've learned my lesson. I'll listen to you, Boeing, but you got to prove it over an extended period of time before I'm going to believe you this time around.
Jay Ratliff, what's it like to fly across the country today?
Yeah, I think Salt Lake City is the only problem child, and I really had to dig for that one. Delays weather-wise, maybe 30 to 45 minutes. The rest of the country, Denver and the Northeast, finally. Anything south looks to be good. To be a good day from a lack of turbulence. And I'm not saying keep your seatbelt off, but I am saying it should be a more comfortable ride today. Obviously, as you fly, please keep that seatbelt fastened about you. We still see injuries reported on planes. And it's funny, Jimmy, people won't go around the corner to get a gallon of milk without buckling their seatbelt, but they'll climb on board an airplane going 530 miles an hour and take it off and think nothing of it. So please, always keep those seatbelts fastened about you. And to circle back to that previous conversation, keep your shoes on when you go to the lavatory.
Yeah. jratliff.com, jratliff.com, aviation travel expert, and also day trade fun. You can find that all linked up at jratliff.com, RATLAF, jratliff.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, question of the day. Our Lois says, I can't really think of any recurring small arguments, disagreements, maybe on leaving on the ceiling fans, but not smells. Jim says he's had arguments about too much Febreze or other room deodorizer spray. Obnoxious Scott says his answer of the day has been his wife's ability to create methane combinations naturally. Delilah, that means Scott says his wife is gassy, and she probably blames it on him. That's what she probably does. Scott, or blame it on the dog. Always blame it on the dog. That's what you do. Anyway, the question of the day is what the 58% of Americans say they fought about smells in shared spaces. But what's the strangest thing you ever fought over? And again, I've told mine was whether or not eggshells after you crack the egg should be put down the disposal, in the trash, or back in the carton. Anybody else do the carton thing? I think it was for mulch. I don't remember. That was many years ago. But, it was very strange. Yeah. No recurring arguments. Where are we going to go to dinner tonight? No one can ever decide. But, if you decide, you're going to have to convince her. So anyway, there's your question of the day. Speaking of smells, I have we have a rule at the house. No flowery smells. It's just my son and I, right? And so we always had to have masculine smells in the house. For air fresheners, anything like that, it's always got to be masculine. And so I go hotel driven. So I go to the stores and you see some of these sprays or the potpourris and all this stuff that's floral. Listen, they need to have a man line when it comes to smells. There's a few good ones out there I could tip you on, and then there's some other stuff you can order off Amazon. But yeah, some of the smells out there are offensive, especially for a real man. Matter of fact, let me tell you, if you're American, if you're a man and you ever allow Fabulosa to clean your home or your property, you should just surrender your man card and maybe surrender America. It's awful. Fabulosa. That's some nasty stuff. And there's a restaurant, a little diner I went to one time. They started cleaning with it. I said, if you don't put up that Fabulosa right now, I will never be back here again. It was the nastiest stuff ever. I had a housekeeper one time that wanted to use Fabulosa in my house. And I said, you know where the front door's at? Yeah. Out it. Go. You're not, never, ever, ever. Fabulosa is not even, Fabulosa is what they clean the pits of hell with. It's nasty stuff. If you use that, your nose is broken. It's awful. My opinion. All right, let's do the meme roulette. What do you say? We're going to steal some memes from all around the globe. Round and round the globe we're going to go. And where we'll steal the memes. Ready for it? Let's do it. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Being offended by my post is like going to the titty bar and being mad because you saw boobs. I see what producer Chad there. He just required me to say boobs. Well, I should, if I would, I just read it and I realized I could have substituted witty with a T. I don't want to offend the people out there. I've already offended people about Fabulosa. I apologize. If you ever go to the witty with a T bar and you see boobies and you're offended, then you probably shouldn't be. I just spat it right out there. Did I just vomited the word out and said, we don't say titties on this show, do we? Delilah? I shouldn't ask you about titties ever. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, this is dumber than a box of Crockett's. Well, producer Chad has amped up the offensiveness this morning, hasn't he? Fourth gear. Slap it into overdrive, baby. Dumber than a box of Crockett's. Right around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. It's small print. I got to blow the screen up here. I got to get a bigger monitor. What happens when you go a week without whiskey? I have no idea. Do we know this guy? Is that AI? On the right, that looks like a emaciated, not emancipated, emaciated. I got to get my vocab words right. It looks like an emaciated Barry Switzer. Looks like Barry Switzer was anorexic. What happens when you go a week without whiskey? I have no idea. I do. I gave up the whiskey for tequila. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. In a span of 11 years, 115 people have died by weightlifting accident in a gym. In the same 11 years, only one person died eating a donut. Make good choices. Enjoy life. Eat a donut, for Pete's sake. There you have it. There's producer Chad's health tips right there. Very dangerous in those weightlifting accidents at the gym. Very, very dangerous. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Judge Boasberg overrules Trump's peace deal, says Israel and Hamas must keep fighting. I'm surprised. Did you see a judge? Now, they said it's not political. They just, it's a more technical, that they were gifting land for the Trump Presidential Museum in Miami, and they said they didn't give enough public input, and so they delayed it, but I think that'll happen anyway. But yeah, Judge Boasberg, look up the Bible. There's a Boaz, and Boasberg is maybe the modern day representation of that. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I don't think people realized how close we were in this photo to the end of the world. And if you're watching or listening on the audio only of the program, it is a truck wreck in the bad weather. And there's a semi-truck with a trailer that says Coca-Cola. And there's another semi-truck down on its side next to it with the name on the trailer says Mentos. We almost had a collision between the Coca-Cola and the Mentos truck, and it would have been the end of the world as we know it. Yeah. Couldn't blame Hamas for that one. Couldn't blame Vladimir Putin. It's the explosion of Coca-Cola and Mentos. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now milked the meme machine dry. Ray says, I hate it when you walk into the public restroom and it smells like a backed up sewer. Does that's just a comment from Ray. That's not part of the question of the day, right? Well, Ray, we hate that too. My wife is Japanese, Roger says. I remind her we won the war, but she tells me I speak Japanese like a woman. Great argument. We've deviated from the question of the day. The argument there, I see the question of the day is whether you're a masculine Japanese speaker. I get it now. Sorry, Ray's sewage comment threw me off. Roger's on track. Ray was just randomly venting. I hate it when things smell like sewer. Well, Ray, we all hate it when things smell like sewer. I don't know. So Roger speaks a very, how do you speak a feminine Japanese? I don't know. I don't know feminine Japanese. I don't get that. Ladies and gentlemen, homeswithsherry.com. You got to remember Sherry. I've talked about the timing and the seasonality and the strategy of real estate. And there's a heck of a lot to that. By the way, Sherry will be on the program tomorrow a little earlier. If you want to tune in early at 8:15 tomorrow morning, Sherry Cree will be on us on the program, and you don't want to miss that. But listen, there's a lot of strategy and a lot of conversation if you're going to get the top dollar for your home. You want to sell at the right time. You want to sell it at the right price. You want it all to just kind of come together, but it doesn't just come together. Accidents don't happen when it comes together. You need to make sure that the house is priced right, looks right, the photos are right. Everything's got to be right. And sometimes you got a complex situation. I told you the story yesterday of somebody that was selling a home from an elderly parent and it was in disrepair. And Sherry had to step in with all of her contacts and really kind of clean up a lot of messes to get that thing ready to sell because she, again, wants it to be top dollar. And she knows that if you make the right transaction on your home can be something that can create generational wealth. It's a big time decision. It's not just you upsizing, downsizing, moving down the street. It could be a life-changing transaction that creates generational wealth for you, your family, your kids, your grandkids, etc. So make the right decision. Have a strategy session with Sherry. Talk to her. Again, you're saying, well, we're heading into the fall. I'm not going to worry about selling until spring or summer. Listen, you want to be the earliest one. You want to be first out when people are hungry, ready to move after the holiday season, the Super Bowl. They're ready to go. You want to be first up. Get ready now for the spring season. And it can be some getting ready. It can be some decluttering. It could be some staging. Sherry could save you some money and say, don't work on that. Let the new owner work on that. Work on this. And again, strategy. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. Go to the website. If you're on the I-25 corridor of Colorado, Fort Collins to Fort Lupton. If you're down in the Park Meadows area, Broomfield, Boulder, you get it. Aurora, she can make sure you don't live next to Trende Aragua. Parker as well. She also has a free referral service. Reach out to Sherry Cree. She'll be on the program with me tomorrow morning, Friday morning at 8:15. HomesWithSherry.com, HomesWithSherry.com. And be sure to let her know that Jaime Lagos, Jimmy Lakey is talking about her. HomesWithSherry.com. All right, don't forget, we checked the numbers this week. Thousands of people by the end of the week, end of the day, hear this show. They watch this show. The podcast platforms are doing phenomenal out there. So make sure you go like us. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you're at, go like us and download the show. A lot of times you can just listen to it later in the day in case, this interrupts your day. Listen to it. It can become a podcast of regular rotation for you. Just go to all the podcast platforms and look up Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'll see you tomorrow. May God bless you. By the way, if you want to contact us, info@jimmylakey.com. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.